Welcome to This Week in Pulling, the show that brings you all the action from the world of tractor and truck pulling. I'm Dan Mayer, joined by Jeremy and Miles Krieger, and each week we'll dive into the latest highlights, breaking news, and behind-the-scenes stories from the sport we all love. From upcoming events, standout performances, and the rich history that shaped pulling into what it is today, we've got you covered. So buckle up, This Week in Pulling starts now.
Well, welcome back, pulling fans. This Week in Pulling, episode 30 already. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dan. Good afternoon, Miles. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see everyone.
How we doing?
Well, we had a busy weekend last weekend, a lot of pulling going on, and Jeremy and I had the opportunity to head on over to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. I had never been there before. Jeremy had been there in the past, but what an event they put on. Unbelievable.
That was crazy. It really was. It was really interesting to see how that all worked. But yes, they pulled it off. The Battle of the Bluegrass and TNT coming together. They deserve to be commended because they did a great job. It was really, really interesting to just watch it all sort of conglomerate. We had some questions as to how that would work. And, I think we had some bugs to work out as it was happening, but, we came together and figured it out. And, you had one group of announcers on one side, Ricky Heath on the other side. And, you and I were kind of going back and forth to determine which tech official was going to call what on what track at what time. But I feel like as the evening went along, it just sort of settled in and all went well. And it was really, really a great event. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. And always, fun working with you, Dan. And I know it wasn't the most ideal of conditions for us down there on the big end with no monitor and, a whole gallery or a flock of people standing in front of us most of the evening. But what a fun pull that was. The competition was great. The classes were all fun to watch and very competitive for sure.
And are you still? I'm still knocking the dust out of everything too. We got it with dust down there pretty good.
I was sort of allergic, I think, to the evening when I got home. I was sneezing and trying to get everything cleaned up. But yes, I had dust on my phone, had dust in my, all over my person, all over my stuff. Yes, I would say next time maybe we need to be under a tent. Of course, I don't even know if that would matter at this point. But
yeah, it was just everybody kind of pulling up. Now, guys, what it goes to show you, though, organizations can work together.
They can.
There's a prime example right there of each organization took a track and away they went, and it worked out perfect. I mean, we were done, a Scotia after 10:30, I want to say, is when we finally ended up.
We had some big numbers too. I mean, I don't. Did you ever end up figuring out what the total hook count was?
I did. I've got it written down here. A total of 131 hooks.
Okay.
131 hooks for that pull in Elizabethtown, the David Bewley Memorial 3rd Annual. And, I mean, you name it. Everything from, my gosh, we saw light limited super stocks came out in groves. We had, I think they were one of our biggest fields. We had there 25 of those.
Yep.
We had two-wheel drives. I think we had about 15 of those. Hot farms, a 9,500-pound hot. We had a couple different hot farm classes we were running. And that was, the 95, like the Southern Indiana ones. And I'm trying to think what else we had a big field of 3.0 trucks.
Yeah, huge field of 3.0 trucks. And, I think they balance one another out. Like, if you had a heavy group on one side, you had sort of a light to middle group on the other side. And I know, apologize to all the folks on Full Pull Live. We had some attrition with the switcher. That's what it ended up being. Our folks there in the trailer were not able to switch back and forth to the different sides of the tracks without some help. So that's I think as the evening got along, they got that figured out. But in the beginning, I know you and I were getting text messages galore from people not being able to watch the light limited mods or the light unlimited mods. But it was really fun to watch and enjoyed it quite a bit for sure.
Yeah, what a great event. And what was your biggest surprise of the event? Or I don't know about surprise or just kind of one of those things that I was thinking about it the other day about, kind of rehashing the whole event. And there's one thing that comes to mind for me, but what comes for you?
Well, you say yours, and I got to think about it because I've got
Okay,
a bunch.
mine is Jim Corey. Two-wheel drive, finally got that win. Got that win in his back pocket, and that was pretty cool to see. And I don't think, when he came over and, kind of gave him congratulations, I don't think it's sunk in quite yet for him. But, great to see a guy that, has worked at this two-wheel drive thing. I mean, he's still relatively new, last couple of years. But to me, that was one of the, one of the highlights of that event.
Well, I guess for me, as opposed to it being a person, I think it would just be the track crew and the tracks themselves.
Okay.
Because we had a situation where they held, like, you didn't have to be an early number. You could win the class at the tail or close to the tail. I think for me, seeing as the evening went along, I thought, okay, well, early number is going to win every time. And it wasn't the case at all. Like, you had somebody hook early, and as the evening went along, you had people just very, very close. I think what we were in the light super class, we had 319, 320, and then 334.
Yes.
There was a whole bunch there as the evening went along where, traditionally the track gets bad at the tail, or as the class continues, the track starts to give up. That's not what happened. So I think for me, just the storyline was the fact that, Larry Phillips and his crew built a monster set of tracks that held as the evening went along. But yes, I concur with you. Seeing Jim Corey out there was really, really fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
And what a facility. I personally, this was the first time that I had the chance to go there and, set up right alongside I-65. And, they said they haven't had that many pullers there ever, that they could remember. And,
right, for sure. And I've been to that event on the fair side. So, like, during the Hardin County Fair, they have an event that Mid-South puts on. And it's usually always on top of Huntland, Tennessee. So David Myrick can't make that trip, and so I've gone the last couple of years, and they pull like two-wheelers and light supers and pro stock four-wheel drives traditionally. That's what I think they had this past year, and then maybe one other, like a 5.0, maybe a 5.0 Pro class. I think there's usually 4 or 5 that they run there. But man, right, I didn't see near the same amount of vehicles because they usually are on that one side as opposed to the other side. And I know you were talking, this could potentially be a venue where one day you have one of those big invitational. Everybody comes in from all sanctioning bodies, and this would be a good spot to hold an event like that. Kind of like a Farley or someplace like that where you have a whole lot of competitors come in over several days. I think they could totally pull it off there.
Yeah, I think it's got great potential, and hopefully everybody can continue to work together on this deal. And it's kind of interesting too with the end of season pulls. This wasn't the only big pull going on. The pull up in Weaklands up in Pennsylvania was going on as well. And, once again, a lot of competitors coming out for that event as well. That was a 2-day show up there and some great competition up there as well. And I mean, what's your guys' thoughts on these end of season pulls? It looks like they're, starting to, the last couple of years you really haven't seen. Now they're kind of making their way back, and it's pretty cool to see the open competition kind of deal.
Absolutely. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think, it's going to be interesting to see what they do now. Now that they've been able to do it at the David Bewley, will they do it again? Will it, what will happen in 2026 is, I guess, the question that I would have. Now that they've proven they can successfully do this, I feel like the sky is the limit across different sanctioning bodies. I'd love to see this continue. I think it was very, very cool. And, I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, it looks like Weakland had some pretty awesome numbers from what I can see, and the pro stock super stock combo kind of battle between Colin and all other takers in that kind of game played off and made some pretty good storyline as well. And again, like we've talked about throughout the summer, over 20 super stock diesel pickups were there and in competition, and
Yep.
I think it's awesome. So kudos to that whole crew putting the event on, and hopefully again, next fall they'll be rewarded with some awesome attendance.
Yeah, and I also like the limited pro stocks and the light pro stocks, how they mix them together. I've seen that a couple times. I know they do that in Ohio State, and they did that at the Weaklands event, and that's kind of neat how they do that, and everybody comes together with the with the different combinations, and yeah, that's pretty neat how they I mean, the combo class, the super stocks and the pro stocks, they've been doing that for as long as I can remember out there in Western Pennsylvania, and that's always been a very popular class out there. But yeah, it was pretty neat to see everybody trying some different things, and down in Elizabethtown, we had Ken Payne was down there and actually made an exhibition pass and was trying some different things, and yeah, looked pretty stout down there. So it's pretty neat to see at the end of the year when everybody coming out and kind of testing their stuff, getting ready to go for the because it's right around the corner. I mean, Farm Show is going to be here before you know it, and all the indoor stuff gets going.
Sure.
Well, and I think our 3.0 diesel competitors and some others are still gearing up for diesels and dark corners, which will be coming up here pretty soon. And so I think a lot of those once TNT will get through their season next weekend in Sevierville on the 11th. I think they go to diesels and dark corners the following weekend, which is on top of you go to Lufkin, right?
Yeah, go to Lufkin, Texas next weekend for the Outlaw Finals, and then the week after that will be the Diesels and Dark Corners. Okay. And speaking of that event, had an update as far as they had upped the entry fee for that event and was kind of trying to control numbers, because last year the numbers kind of got way out of control there. They had huge numbers, and running on a single track made for some pretty long nights, so they were kind of looking to cut that back. So they raised the entry fee, and I think right now the numbers are where they're looking about a 4.5 hour show is where they're looking, and I think the numbers are right about that, where they want to be. So kudos to them for trying something a little bit different there. And what a venue that is, another unique venue when you look at interesting pulling tracks. It's got that Georgia red clay, and you look down through there and you've got the trees, and it's just a really cool setup down there. So they've it's good to see that the pulling kind of stretches around. Of course, we're going to be in Lufkin for that event. That happens at a drag strip, and they actually down at the end of the drag strip, kind of like a Benson deal. They've got the pulling track set up down there at the end of the pulling track, and that's kind of how that's set up. But yeah, that'll be interesting too, to see who makes the trip down to Lufkin next week. They're running you got 2-wheel drives, got pro stocks, got the light mods, of course, down there as well. So some pretty interesting, and of course, that'll wrap it up for the Outlaws.
Absolutely. But no, I'd like to go to Weaklands. That seemed like an interesting place too. All the pictures I saw, it seemed like the crowds were great and lots of fun things going on there. So I would love to make that trip eventually and see what that place is like for sure.
Yeah, I think they said they had record attendance for both their Friday night and Saturday night crowds there. So hats off to those folks. And I know I've seen Mike from time to time at different events throughout the year, and good to see that that event starting to gain some momentum, and and of course raising a lot of money for the Make-A-Wish too. That was one of their big things with that event is raising money for the kiddos, and how cool was that to see them do that? I mean, obviously we're involved with that with Bowling Green, but it's good to see other events are with the helping out with the Make-A-Wish. That's pretty awesome.
Absolutely, and of course helping out with Clarity Solutions there at the David Bewley as well, that big charity for that helps expectant mothers with things that they need for their babies. So that's pretty neat. And I did think of one other thing I thought was pretty neat. Like, I think we need to talk about Wayne Bunnage, because that was an absolute monster pass. I gotta admit, I thought Papa Wayne had it sort of sewed up, and Wayne Bunnage just kind of came and threw a wrench in everybody's plans down there.
Yeah, that the last 2 weeks had the opportunity to see that tractor and haven't had a chance to see it all summer and in person. And the last 2 weeks, it's it is
it's the real deal.
It's a runner, and we'll see if he makes it down to Texas or not. I'm not sure if he's going to make the tow down there, but yeah, it's definitely the way it's running right now. Look out! And back to Miles' point that he made a couple weeks ago on our show about, getting ready for Louisville with everybody with that, adding that third engine. Boy, I don't know. I think the numbers are just going to keep continuing to go up here for, for picking this field here. Boy,
I think he hit the nail on the head. It's going to be very interesting to see, and I'm glad I'm not on the fair committee. I do not want to be the one that picks who goes, because I think they're only allowed 12?
12. Yeah.
12 is the number. Holy smoke. Whew. That's not a pick I want to make.
Yeah, you've got a tough, go ahead, Miles.
It's not, I mean, it's one of those scenarios where I realize as you start to evaluate and study and look at it that you are going to find that there will be people who don't run that combination. And maybe that's their first way of making that decision is how many times are you running triple? How many times are you running with a quad setup? Are you running a true modified tractor setup? And if that's the answer and that's the case, then okay, you probably get first priority, or maybe you should. But there's an awful lot of 2-engine tractors out there that could bolt a third one on and go and do just absolutely amazing things. I mean, I think about the fact that, 2 consecutive years, Craig Corzine rolled there into Louisville, having run just with a double setup outside and occasionally maybe run a mod here or there or whatever. And the next thing you know, he's going to win it. So there are plenty of two engine tractors that I think could go in there and stand a chance. Now, do they go by Brandon Simon and Bill Leichner and some of those guys? I don't know, but I think there's a lot of real opportunity there for sure. And it's been, I've kind of relayed that in my mind and played that over and over and over and over and over again. I just, I don't have any control over it. I want people to understand that. Dan and I get that question quite regularly. We're just the announcers. We're contracted people just like anybody else. So we don't sit on the fair board and we don't have any influence. But if somebody asks me what I want to see happen, I would beg again for that light mod class to have a session.
Also you think about, putting the class together, and, Doug Theobald, has the last couple of years, they have changed over their setup completely, from running the unlimited class and coming in and running Louisville.
Right.
So how many is there some more competitors out there that might go down that road? No. That's always a possibility too. So there you've got like 3 avenues coming into one here, and that's a tough decision.
I respect them like crazy, and I hope that that everybody applies and at least puts their name in the hat and makes the decision that much more challenging for the guys that get to do that. I also feel like, as you look towards off season and sort of what's coming, I think, you look at what that the promoters are going to start to do. And I know we've had that conversation, but I just can't help but think that light mod class isn't going to end up with some more hooks.
Well, and we talked about it, at the beginning of the season. We said, watch the light mod class because it's going to be something to watch. And it was. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you're a promoter looking for something next year, you'd be silly not to think about the light mods. I just feel like that's something that's up and coming, and it was an unbelievable experience to watch them this summer. And I had the opportunity to talk to Papa Wayne a little bit about, his win, and he's, sort of humble in victory, but I know he was very, very excited and happy to bring home the hardware this year in that class. And I think we'll be gunning for him next year because, I look for him to go and defend his title again.
Yeah, I really would like to have that conversation, with Danny Schmucker in Canton, Ohio, because this year they were ones that, replaced the class with the light modifieds this year. And I know he said, they were happy with the show, but I really didn't focus on just the light mods to see what he thought of that as far as a promoter side of things, at that event up there in Canton. But, running the light mods like they did for, 2 shows there, and, they put on a great show. Really, we saw pretty much the championship kind of settle in right there that weekend. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what, next time I talk to Danny, there would be interesting to see what his thoughts were on the light modified class and moving forward. Are they going to, continue with them? I would imagine they would, being the show they put on this year.
Sure. Well, and, I think about like a Brandenburg, like, Meade County next year being on top of, I believe, Chapel Hill, depending upon how it all shakes out, so if they send pro stocks and either, they send the four-wheelers to Chapel Hill, maybe they bring two-wheelers and light mods and light supers. Who knows?
Now, here's my question with Brandenburg. Have they ever run mods there? You guys
They
ever
run light mod there?
Did they?
Yeah,
Okay.
they've run light mods.
The Light Unlimited at that time.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Light Unlimiteds went there. But I do not recall. Now, back in the run what you brung or kind of, days, I remember there being I think maybe some mods there. But
okay.
Yeah, it's been, of course, there's been a whole plethora of opportunities for amazing events there over the years. And, I don't know, I can't, Jeremy, we need to have Kenny or one of those guys talk to you. We talked earlier this year about 50th celebrations, but
Right.
I can't fathom those guys are too far off of it, because I can go all the way back to the mid 80s with Dad. So I know they've got to be over 40, over 40 years that they've been hosting there at the Meade County Fairgrounds. So
Sure.
We'll have to get an idea.
Yeah,
when
I'll get
when
some
that
clarification. That won't be hard to do. We got to be close. You're right.
Couple storylines I feel like we could probably highlight, and one of them obviously is a full confirmed story, and the other is just something from social media purposes. But major kudos to Chad Mayhill and Hawthorne Tire for their acquisition of what they've done, and I think that will only further advance things. I think the vision of those two gentlemen and kind of what's coming means really, really good things, and kind of anxious to see what that'll be in terms of technology. As multiple times on this very podcast, we've talked about how we feel like tire technology is and has continued to be one of the biggest and most integral changes in this game. And then I did read somewhere, I'm pretty sure, and maybe Dan, you can confirm that Bill Vorey's tractor did go out west.
Yeah, I haven't officially, heard that rumor, but I've heard the rumor, but I haven't confirmed it. I will see Mr. Urban here next weekend, so we'll be able to.
I wondered if that very piece might show up in
well,
Texas.
You never know. I mean, you talk about the Urban family over the years, boy, they've ended up with some. And actually, the piece that he has right now, Billy Loftus's old tractor, is no tractor that it won a lot of events over the years. So yeah, they're not uncommon. But yeah, I hope to clarify or make sure that it actually happened. See him down there next week. So hopefully be able to get. We'll be able to make sure the story is true. So, but I have heard the same thing. But like I say, to get clarification on it, we'll make sure next week. So, but. Yeah,
those were my two tidbits for the week. There is those. I think those storylines. I mean, I do think I did talk to Chad on the phone and had a pretty good conversation with him. And I do think there's a lot. There. I just think it's a really, really great acquisition. And it's not to say that Aaron wasn't able to do the things that he was capable of doing, because he had done a good job over the last decade of bringing that brand into fruition and some different compounds and technology that he was using. But I think, like I said, I think Chad's, scope of what's happening and Mark Hawthorne and that group and their scope of what's happening. And I think that's a pretty interesting combination and a group of guys who've already been working together and have a really good knowledge and understanding of what they need to do. And because of that, I just can't help but think that in a year's time, 2 years time, 3 years time, we're going to have this discussion again about tire technology and the changes that were made. Not so much maybe
Absolutely.
on the 30.5 tire, but maybe more on the other.
Yeah, congratulations, Chad and that group for getting everything together there, getting everything all tidied up, and like you say, it'll be interesting moving forward how that goes.
NTPA region points Monday night, right? Wrapped up
Monday
things up
night,
there.
they wrapped up. Yep. They finished up in Lancaster, Ohio, their final Region 2 event. Region 4 still has the North Carolina State Fair, and then all the regional championships will be wrapped up with the NTPA. That's what they've got left going. And then, like you say, the Outlaws will finish up here in Lufkin, Texas next week, and we'll call it a season as well. So, yeah, guys, we're almost getting to that point where the pull-ins, you can almost count what's left on your hand, as far as what pulling events are left. But it's got to go down south now for a little bit more pulling.
And I just can't believe how fast
deadline. Application deadline for Farm Show
was the 6th, right?
Has come and gone now. Monday was the day you had to have your stuff mailed, and we'll talk about it later when we get into the lists and discussion. But I'm going to put you on the spot with a question when we get to that point with the last time a family didn't have an appearance in the Farm Show, because there's going to be a gaping hole in one of those classes that I can think of there based off of who did not apply. So
okay.
Yeah, interesting to see and think about, the seasons of life and kind of what's there for us. But anxious to, the good thing about that and what we've started to realize over the last few years is we've seen new bodies come, and hopefully we'll see that again this year. I didn't get any messages or any feedback. I don't know if you guys did or didn't, but I still want to pose the idea of having some topics and some discussion topics that we can have for pull of the year, puller of the year, event of the year, pass of the year, those sorts of things.
Yep. I haven't gotten anything either. I did get a question about whether or not we will have a National Farm Machinery Show preview. And I think, of course, as we get closer to that, we certainly will, once we know what the lists are and who's coming. I think that's definitely something, that will happen. But no, I haven't gotten any, to your point, I haven't gotten any suggestions like that either.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good idea, to kind of put our heads together and what we come up with and see where we all land as far as, what runs and things on all the organizations, really, because I think, I was able to, for the first time, I've really, I've seen a couple outlaw events that I've never, seen before, and boy, some different classes that you've never seen before. So that's pretty interesting to see what's out there. And we do, like you say, make sure you check out Full Pull Live and go out and watch some of those outlaw events. If you're a hardcore NTPA or PPL, fan, go and watch some of them outlaw events. I tell you, they've got some interesting classes out there, and boy, do they run a show quick. I'll tell you that too. They really run them through out there, and always is good to watch out there. So I highly recommend it.
Well, you had sent Jeremy and I a topic that you were wanting us to discuss here, and we're already past or nearing the halfway point or through the halfway point, and we haven't got to our topic yet. So maybe I need to have you introduce that, and let's see if we can't chatter a little bit about that.
Moving along. Last weekend, Jeremy and I, when we were down in Elizabethtown, we were standing in front of a super modified 4-wheel drive, and we were just kind of looking at it, and we're like, man, we don't see these things nearly enough. So we had Joey Alexander's truck, says beautiful mid-'80s Chevrolet sitting there, and super modified 4-wheel drive, and kind of got to thinking, like, you only see them. They run with TNT. They run with the Mid-South Pullers. Is that who they run with? And then what was the organization down in Tennessee last week? The Middle Tennessee Pullers?
Yeah, I think MTPA.
They pull with them. And then, of course, they're up in Ohio State. Kind of a totally different, 4-wheel drive than what we've, over the years, what we've seen. The NTPA ran them there as a Grand National class for, I want to say it was like 01 to 2011, I think was the years they ran them. And there was a couple of years they didn't have enough trucks to actually run them. But, Bob Bowden, I think, was a 4-time champ with that class. Larry Douthit won a couple championships. But, now they've kind of gone back to their regions, and you really don't see them, on that big stage anymore. But what an interesting class, though. Like the TNT, the rules they run was at 500 cubic inches and a smaller supercharger, and the long wheel. That's the part that I enjoy.
53.8%, I think, overdrive on an 871 blow.
And then do you have to run the long extended chassis?
You don't.
You don't. The majority of them do in that group, but no.
But like OSTPA, the OSTPA trucks don't have the long frames, right?
No, they're not. I don't think they're allowed. I think
I don't believe they're allowed.
But
Kentucky,
that'd be like
trucks
Parker and Odell and that group, right?
In that group, yep.
170.
But they run a higher cubic inch though. They run a higher cubic inch than the Kentucky Tennessee trucks do.
Do they go 575?
Something like that, I believe. Okay. Yeah, they're up there.
They can run the same size as like a 2-wheel drive. Okay.
Which is kind of interesting because looking back on this, now the NTPA back 1981 it was actually ran for 1 year. They ran the long wheelbase super modified 4-wheel drive, ran for a championship. I only think they had like 4 or 5 hooks for the class, but they only ran it once because the NTPA at the time, they were looking for something to offset the 4-wheel drives. And this was before 2-wheel drives were pulling indoors, but NTPA wasn't sure if they were going to sanction them. And then they finally obviously went 2-wheel drive. But yeah, it was kind of interesting that NTPA actually ran a long wheelbase class for 1 year. That was all it lasted. And of course they didn't have a very good turnout. So that's why they kind of didn't, hang around. But yeah, I thought that was pretty neat.
Well, and I think this class comes back because of, the Kentucky side of things, because you had so many of those trucks in Kentucky. Like I think of like Nathan Sewell and
yes.
The Valley Shaker. Those were just sitting in shops, and I think, Eddie Carey and maybe some other folks decided, hey, let's just bring them back out. And I know they run with KTPA as well. What you think about the Dews family, they have several, doing it in the dirt in the van, and there were a whole bunch, and I think at one point, the old Orange Blossom Special, the Alan Gaines long wheelbase 4-wheel drive version is still out there somewhere. I don't know who has it, but I know it's still out there.
Yeah, I did see. If memory serves me right, I thought I saw it. Was it the Eddie Carey pull maybe that they had it?
Yeah, I believe they had it on display at the Kentucky Invitational Tractor Pull out there, but I don't, like I say, I know it is still out there, and I don't know who owns it or who pulls it. Maybe Carey's own it. I know they have the original Orange Blossom Special that they have, like, just keeping it, for posterity. But I know I saw that same truck that you just took a picture of. It's out there, but I haven't seen it. And then there are some other ones, like there are a couple of, like there's a green Ford that you see from time to time. Sewell has 2 now. I know he has one called Blackjack, and he has, of course, the Valley Shaker. And then, you've got people building them. Yeah, Mr. Diamond T is out there, and the Slimer. I think the Powell family still has that one too. But yeah, I mean, they're out there. They're out there for sure. And you've got, people like, the Radical group. You've got them building more. Clem's, I think, going to have another one. I think they have one, and now another coming out, I think you said.
Yeah, when I talked to him there on Saturday, he says, don't be surprised if you see another one. In which for them it makes the most sense, because talking to him, he says, hey, we've got how many pulls within an hour and a half of our house?
Absolutely.
And here he says, I was going 14, 15 hours out west, try to run the PPL deal.
Yeah, you could snap a blower on it. And he said you don't have to work on them as much, as opposed to those big, high horsepower, maximum cubic inch, mountain motor, Sonny Leonard type stuff that he has on the mod side or the 4-wheel drive side. He's, they can just run valves and go pull again the next night.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says we could, now that obviously, the family's getting bigger, and how that goes. And yeah, he says it's just a matter of, hey, let's go have fun. And that's what they do with that truck. That truck is just strictly for them to, go truck pulling. And boy, it's a tough one. It's
and it's the same with Galen Young and that group, that they've got the big nasty that Jared Jones drives for them. I think they're on, I think he won the points with it last year. And I think he's, set to maybe do that again. I don't know if anybody's close to him. I think our favorite Hearse is in line to maybe make a run, but we'll have to see.
The old Hearse gave it a shot there on Saturday. Came up about less than a foot behind the big nasty there on Saturday night. But yeah, no, and like you say, that long wheelbase and it just takes you back to the But you look back though, I mean, U.S. Hot Rod, TNT, Pro Shows, all those indoor circuits back then used to run the long wheelbase trucks.
Yep.
And actually, they had a resurgence with U.S. Hot Rod in the late 80s. Going into the early 90s, they tried bringing them back for a few years, and that's where Mr. Diamond T, the Valley Shaker, the Douthits, Big Daddy Magic, and
you've got some of those like Battle Axe and the Tennessee Stud. There were a whole bunch that were out there sort of back in the day. And I think, Dan, I could be wrong, but I feel like there's probably some still in barns to this day that are just sitting there that could come back.
I believe so. Yeah, I think you could see, potentially, I've never seen a pull where they were all made it to, I mean, that you've been at a pull where there's, you'll get 10 of them, you'll get, but there'll be different ones.
I would love to see somebody put up some money for like a shootout, like a Supermod 4 long wheelbase only. I would love to see how many of them we could get. I bet you'd get 20.
Yeah. Well, remember, I mean, Bowling Green had them there, when they were a Grand National class, and you'd get some of the guys come up from down south, that come up and run. And I'm trying to think, Randy McConnell, and there was the one from Alabama, the Bama Heartbeat truck. I remember used to come up, and I think there was Ritter, Tony Ritter, maybe was his name. Would come up and run with the Ohio trucks there at Bowling Green, and put on a good show.
But I don't think Yellow Thunder or Yellow Fever is long wheelbase anymore.
No, they were all shorter.
Okay, right.
Larry Douthits. Remember Larry Douthits was
the Big Daddy Magic. So what would you do? Would you combine them and run short and long together, or would you run long with long and short with short? Like, how would you do it?
I mean, as far as like a shootout goes, or just having a class?
A shootout.
Like, I mean, in order to have a shootout, you'd have to limit the big cubic inch trucks, making the big power up there in Ohio.
You're right.
So you'd have to come up with a way to.
Do they run 1471 blowers?
I think they run the bigger blowers.
Okay.
I mean,
then definitely you'd have to put them in separate divisions. Now, didn't the Teasleys have one too at one point?
Yes. Yep. Actually, I do remember them winning a ring at Bowling Green.
That's what I thought.
With the Black Dodge.
And Andy drove it.
Andy. Yep. Andy drove it there, and that was back in back when it was a Grand National class. And it didn't last too long. I think Mike Summers was the last champion with the super modified class with NTPA. Now he runs a mini rod. So that's kind of he's kind of had a breakout season there with his mini rod this year, and he's looking for big things. But interesting class. You don't get to see it too much. And when I was up Western New York, you'd only see it on TV, and having the chance to come down here and see them at different pulls, and see what's still out there, and just a great group of competitors out there. And, it's a very, very interesting class, to say the least. I don't know where that all came.
Maybe we ought to do that. See if we can come up with, somebody that would underwrite a little bit of money, and see if we can get them at a hook somewhere next year. I mean,
it would be.
Weren't they at Glencoe when we were there? Like, didn't they come this year, or was?
Yes. Yep, they were there.
I thought maybe they were at Hansel Sullivan's.
Yep, because
maybe we try to figure out somebody locally who would see if we can get some of those guys out and see how many of them we can get. That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be very interesting to see how many there actually are. I mean, because I know up like Powell's up, they're just up in LaGrange, I think, is where the Powell family there, and
they have at least two, maybe they have three. The Dews family has
a bunch,
2 or 3. And
I
then
want to say we saw in Sevierville last year, we saw one of the Western Kentucky trucks came out.
what I was going to say, I know there's a family out there that owns one called Trailer Trash, which is a blue Dodge. There's another one that is like a bucket T.
Yeah, Stacy, what was his name? He had a bunch of them. He was a sponsor too, if I remember right.
Yep. And then of course you've got Joey Alexander. So there's then Sewell has two. He's got the Valley Shaker and the Blackjack that he runs. So there's two more.
Wiley's did have one. They sold that, right?
Wiley's had one called Blown Hook'em that they sold, and I don't know exactly where it went. And then of course Dean Licklider has one called Wicked Ways, I think, that was a twin turbo truck that's now got a blower on it. He was there. That truck was driven by a young lady at the David Bewley.
Yes, that's right. Okay, I do remember seeing that.
So yeah, I mean, there's 12 or 14 right there, and I guarantee you, if we did a little more digging, we could find
Wiggins was the one we saw at Sevierville last year that came out with. They brought a couple up, if I remember right.
I don't remember exactly what those were, but yes, I remember the name now. And I think they run with Dews or with some of those, maybe the Pals. But yeah, for sure. I mean, let's do that. Let's see if we can figure out where they are and how many we can get, and see if we can talk to maybe somebody about what could we do to maybe entice a few more, and see how many of these long wheelbase Super Mod 4s are still out there, and how many could we get at a class. I would love that. That would be awesome.
That would be neat. Kind of like a super modified 4-wheel drive shootout put together. That'd be interesting to
maybe we get our buddy Eddie Holland to design a t-shirt for us or something.
Yes. Yeah, there you go.
And maybe we could raise some funds that way. That would be really neat. I would love that. Let's do that. Let's figure that out.
All right. We got a couple of our competitors that talk to regularly about the class, and Joey Alexander is one of the guys that every pull you see him at, you always say hi, of course.
I know I'm biased, and we've talked about this, but God, I just love that truck. Like, I just you can't look at that truck and be unhappy about anything. It's just gorgeous. It's everything there is about nostalgia and that era of, like, he built that truck like I would have built it, or you would have built it. Like, if we could point our finger at, okay, this is what I wanted to look at, the childhood, 4-wheel drive guy in me wants it to look like that. Make it happen. And there it is. It's like somebody pushed the button and that's what came out. Like, if I asked ChatGPT to put together the Supermod 4-wheel drive of my dreams,
it's going to look like that.
It's going to be real close to that.
It's good. But then you take the other side of things, like, okay, for the young fans, the kids out there,
sure,
you've got a hearse, you've got a van, I mean, you've got a T-bucket. I mean, you name it.
And then you've got the old Diamond T. Who doesn't like a Mr. Diamond T? Like that one is, in a class by itself. But you're right. How cool would it be to see some old, bump side 4 long beds? Or how cool would it be to see, the old Dodges, like the Tennessee Stud and some of those.
The Nightmare. We forgot about the Nightmare.
Right. We forgot about the Nightmare. I saw it.
Yes.
Where did I see it? I saw it
a couple times this year.
This summer. But yeah, it's still out there. So maybe this would be, if you're watching this tonight and where there are super modified 4s, long wheelbase from back in the day that we're not talking about, send us a message. Bring those to our attention. We would love to know where they are and who has them. And there's, are they still out there? Can we get them back out for a pass somewhere next year? That would be awesome. I think that would be really neat. And I can't imagine that the people in the Supermod 4-wheel drive class that are pulling now would be unhappy with some promotion and a bigger purse somewhere. I think that would be really, really cool.
I do too. I do too. I think it would be very neat. And then I'd love to see the Orange Blossom Special come back out. I mean, number one. We've seen the 37. That's number 2.
We need to see the flatbed square body out pulling somewhere. That would be cool.
Yeah.
And
that's a mandatory part of our shootout. It's got to be there. I mean,
it has to be there. And just how many more are out there is my question. But maybe we do some research on that. And again, beseech you fans watching, if you know where they are, if you know who has them, let's help us tabulate how many of these super modified 4-wheel drives we could get. Long wheelbase, 500 cubic inch, 871, limited blowers. Like, I understand the OSTPA guys do what they do, and I get that, but I'm talking about old school, if we were going to have a shootout in the long wheelbase, 170, cubic or 170 inches or whatever it is, how many could we get?
TNT, Mid-South,
KTPA,
and then the Mid-Tennessee pullers, right?
Yep.
Would be our so there you go. If you know of any of these super modified 2-wheel drives, let us know. We've got let's talk next couple weeks. We've got some big things coming up. We talked about diesels and dark quarters coming up.
Yep.
We are gonna 2 weeks time, we are going to have our first ever 3.0 limited pro stock diesel truck power rankings right here on This Week in Pulling.
Really? Okay.
Yep. Now, last year we kind of saw, down at Diesels and Dark Corners, everybody kind of came down there, shootout. Well, now we want to see what the competitors think. Who do you think is the best limited pro diesel truck driver out there? And we'll pull all the different drivers, and we'll come up with our top 5 rankings. That'll be coming up just before Diesels and Dark Corners, and we'll see how they do down there in that big event.
Absolutely. Well, and unfortunately, Miles has not been able to dial back in, so we'll hopefully see him down the road another time. But I did reach out while we were talking to Kenny Hott at the Meade County Fair Board just to see, and I was wrong, that they started pulling tractors in 1968.
Oh, okay. So they're well past.
They're well past. They're almost to 60. So they'll be 60 in 2028. So they started in 1968 with, he says, horse and mule pulling and 2 classes of farm stock tractors in 1968.
So right there it is.
They've had a tractor pull ever since that year, with the exception of COVID.
Wow. That's impressive.
It is.
That's impressive.
But it's good to I know we don't talk much about this, Dan, but I'm glad you're going to be home this weekend. You've been on the grind since
we've
May,
been,
and you finally have a weekend off where you're not going to have to go somewhere. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope you kick back, and maybe I don't know if Full Pull has anything going that you're not going to, but if they do, you can watch that and chill out at the house.
Well, being from Western New York, we've got Super Dirt Week going on this week. Everybody in Oswego this week is back when I was up in New York, and actually, back when I was racing, it was at the mile, Super Dirt Week. And of course, the mile at Syracuse is long gone, and they've moved it. They've converted Oswego over to, add the dirt on the asphalt. And they've been doing that the last, I think it's been about 10 years now that they've done it.
Okay.
So Super Dirt Week going on, and they've kind of changed that up for the big block modifieds and small blocks and all the classes running out there. So I'll be tuning in, checking how that goes. But we've also got on Full Pull Live this weekend. They'll have the Southern Pullers Association. They're going to have a pull on Friday and Saturday night there. So check that out on Full Pull Live as well. And as always, Jeremy and I had met a couple fans there this past weekend. Tuning in, and you got any ideas you'd like us to talk about, let us know.
Please do. Absolutely. And again, let's talk about super modified 4-wheel drives. Let's talk about having a shootout somewhere next year. Let's figure out where they are. If you are watching this today and you know where there are long wheelbase super modified 4-wheel drives that would come to a pull, let's say in Kentucky next summer, with either the TNT group, the KTPA group, or the Middle Tennessee group, let's talk about that.
Let's get them all together.
Let's get them all together. Let's get as many as we can for one event.
We'll have a long trophy. We'll have
absolutely, and we'll work to see if we can get some additional funding. Maybe somebody comes forward and helps us sponsor this class for a couple nights next summer, and then maybe we get our buddy Eddie Holland to design a T-shirt for us for the to promote that, and see where we can go with this. That'd be fun.
I like it. There we go. Super modified 4-wheel drives. We keep them going. Keep them going.
Old school. We love
Old
it.
school. All right. Well, once again, thanks for watching episode number 30 this week in pulling, and we thank you for joining us here once again. And if you can't get out to a pull this weekend, make sure you do check out Full Pull Live and see what's going on there, and go back, maybe watch some of the older events. I know up here in Southern Indiana, it's starting to cool down a little bit here. We've kind of got a break from the heat, but it's going to be, looks like a good weekend to get out. And hey, if you got pulling nearby, go out and support it.
Absolutely. Get well, Dolly Parton.
Yes, I heard. All right. We'll see everybody.
We got to keep her under a bubble, Dan.
That's right.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you down the road.
We'll see you.